And welcome into the latest edition of Full-Time Roundup. It's been a while. We missed all you guys, but we're back, and we have a special episode. We are here at HopFly Brewing Company in honor of the captain, Pilsner being released with Ashley Westwood. He is in the building. We've had a great time. Not only do we have that special appearance, but we have a special appearance from none other than Daniel Brackett, who has returned from his European adventures. And boy, Daniel, we can't wait to hear about it. We saw you on television. We were in the crowd with the fans. And so, first of all, welcome back. And we'd love to hear about how it went to kind of kick us off here as we start Euros 2024 with a bang.
Well, as you said, Matt, I was gallivanting around Europe. Your direct words, and it was an adventure of a lifetime. I live, breathe, and eat soccer, and to be in Europe while the Euros was happening, especially Germany, which is awesome. Every single country around, just all they talked about, all that was on TV, all the clothes were all jerseys. It was like paradise for me. And to go into a local pub or to go to the public viewing parties with 30,000 fans and celebrate and watch a game and meet as many people as you can was a great experience. I'm very blessed to have it. Sad that we haven't been able to be on the sticks for a while, but I'm glad we're back with a bang, and we're going to keep having some Euros, Copa, Charlotte FC, you name it, content out in the next couple of weeks. But it was a blast. I mean, to be in Germany for the two first games were amazing. The Germans they thought I was one of them, which was a nice compliment there. But they're my team this tournament. My mother was born there too, so I have a little bit of root. Your dad's from France, so a little rival here. But it's been a fantastic tournament. Some really good football has been played, and I have watched almost every single game from start to finish, and it's been a blast.
Well, we're excited to have you back. Of course, we wouldn't be here at HopFly if it wasn't for one of our good friends, John Hayes of the show, who, of course, does such a great job with the Charlotte Soccer Show, so he joins us here as well. You mentioned your fandom with Germany, mine with France. Unfortunately for John, Ireland did not make the Euros. A little disappointing, but we can still get his opinion. He's got a lot of thoughts. Scotland, close enough? Close? England?
Scotland's still part of the kingdom.
Okay, all right, so they all count. So we're going to talk through Euros. Daniel mentioned Copa America, of course. We're here at the HopFly on Sunday. U.S. men's national team get their Copa America started. We'll get into that a little bit. Greg Berhalter making some interesting comments. But, John, your impressions of Euros. Daniel gave his view of the fandom. What were your views of what's been going on the pitch, though, of late?
I'm just happy to be here. Let me start with that. I'm here. You know, what did Marshawn Lynch say? He was like, I'm here, otherwise I'd be fined. I'm here because I'm just happy to be here with y'all, right? No, but seriously, I'm here producing the show. I'm listening to the show. Just want to give a shout out to the Full-Time Roundup listeners. Say hey to you guys. I'm so pumped to hear about your stories from abroad. Obviously, to hear your thoughts on the Euros as well, Matt. And you might hear me pop in and out of this episode with a quick some pop shots, if you will, right? But I'm just here to hang out, listen to you guys talk, and just enjoy the Euros, because that's what soccer is for me, right? I thought about it yesterday as I was sitting around. I said, man, it's summer 2024. It's hot as fuck, that's for sure. But the Euros are getting to the knockout rounds. Copa America is kicking off. The Olympic torch is reaching Paris here soon. MLS is in full swing. If you're a sports fan, it's just a beautiful time to enjoy the beautiful game.
And, of course, they'll have soccer in the Olympics as well, so it's the summer of soccer, which we've talked about. John mentioned that he'll be around. We also may hear from Danny Brams, who potentially will be jumping in and out. Who knows where he is around now at this time of day. But we'll get you covered. And Daniel, we talked about your experience and just kind of your thoughts as you were in Europe. Of course, super jealous of that, having been to Europe, not necessarily around the Euros, but Johnny and I were there for a couple games in the past, and just the environment, like you said, it's constantly on the television. It's in your face all the time. Something a little different than what we experience here. But getting away from that, I want to dive into on-the-field stuff a little bit more with you as well, as we're at the last days of the group stages. Germany, Scotland, Hungary, and Switzerland will play their last games today in Group A. Simultaneous games now going forward, so that all games are played at the same time. No one can kind of sink the ship, if you will, or
Which
look
is a
at
nice
this
wrinkle
Absolutely.
of the tournament that's very new.
Absolutely. So let's dive right into it. So far, what has been your biggest disappointment of the tournament, and kind of what have you been experiencing on the field with the play?
I'd say England is the biggest disappointment. I mean, I was in a bar in Prague with probably 100 English fans on the opening game.
Wait,
That must have been fun.
It's not coming home?
Oh, they sure as hell sang it a couple times. But, I mean, after 1-0 at Serbia for the opening game, I was like, is it? I don't know.
Bracken, were you hanging with those famous OnlyFans girls?
No, I was not. With the British flag.
You could have said that you were Cole Palmer. You look just like him. He's not playing like you aren't playing. You know, you could have had that opportunity there.
A little bit more high and tight haircut, but he's, we've both been sitting, so watching the game. So I just don't get it. It's, we talked about the U.S. quite a bit, Matt, on the show in the past, and I mean, Greg Berhalter and Southgate are. I mean, Southgate's the more successful coach, I'd say, out of the two, like getting to a final or, actually doing something. But this is probably the best generation of England I've seen since the Gerrard, Lampard, Rooney days. And they've just been playing not to lose. And when you're the favorite with France of the tournament, you should be playing like a Germany and just demolishing teams. And it's not like Serbia or the other team they played that I'm forgetting right now have been that impressive. They just have no inspiration. And for the best attack in the tournament, in my opinion, it's just been disgusting to watch.
Yeah, you mentioned the Serbia game. Of course, they drew against Denmark, and Denmark looked to be the better squad in that one. It is interesting, rightfully so. If you look at the players on paper, this team was one of the favorites with France going into it. The roster is absolutely stacked. They have roster players in the Premier League across the board, or stars in La Liga, other leagues, and you just wonder, Gareth Southgate, what he's doing. They look out of position, and you're kind of wondering what he's going to do with the squad, John. Where is the best position for some of these players? Are they in the right spot from where they play in their club? How do you kind of blend the two together? Is kind of something he's having a little bit of difficulty with.
Tactics are definitely an issue, but I wanted to ask you guys what you thought about the substitutions in the previous match, where Jared Bowen comes in,
Conor Gallagher
Watkins comes in, and there was another. They changed all three forwards at the same time.
Yeah.
And Saka came off.
For Eze.
And Eze came in. What'd you make of those substitutions? I said in the moment, I said, gotta have some serious balls to make subs like that.
Hooking Harry Kane both games in a row has been probably the biggest surprise for me of what Southgate's doing. Southgate knows he's not going to be here after this tournament, and he's in fucking mode. And that's what you do. You pull off Harry Kane when you're in that mode. But at the end of the day, he's the one who scored the goal against Denmark. You got to keep him on. He's your best player on the team.
I think he's a little conflicted, right? Because all he's heard about is you trust the guard that you came with. You're very loyal to your players going into the tournament. So when he made his selection, no Rashford, some of those players that were historically on the squad, he dropped for some of these youngsters, Kobe Mainoo, Cole Palmer, Wharton from Crystal Palace. So that was a big call on his part. And then to your point, John, I think he's getting in his own head a little bit where he's saying, I have to make these changes. I can't just play with what I've got and what I'm used to. And pulling Harry Kane is an absolutely big decision that he made. And I don't know how you get away with it. The press is absolutely eating him up right now in England about what he's been doing with the last two games. So, you know what? Kudos to him. It didn't work out, but at least he made the attempt. And to be fair, the way that game played against Denmark, I don't think England was going to score whether or not Harry Kane was on the field. They were getting outplayed by Denmark, and it might have been a safety play first. I don't want to get destroyed here if we lose. Let's get the point and at least stay in this thing for the long haul.
Not to bring up any Champions League baggage, but it felt like very Thomas Tuchel of Gareth Southgate. And we know what happened when Tuchel took Kane out. All of a sudden, Real Madrid scored 2 quick goals, and it goes on to win. For me, taking Kane out for Watkins is worse, or is not as bad, I should say, as putting on Jared Bowen on the right wing. I like Jared Bowen, don't get me wrong, but for Jared Bowen to play on the right wing with with basically a big game on the line at a tied scoreline. I'm just confused by that.
Conor Gallagher was another big one that surprised me as well, and he kind of was playing with his head cut off a little bit, made a lot of inadhered passes that didn't end up, kind of getting them out of position. Actually, put them in more trouble than good. So I think those were some of the interesting ones to me. Now, again, they're still in good position. Daniel, 4 points. Their last game, they still probably going to get out of the group, to be honest. Now you're just looking at how does Gareth Southgate get this roster set up for the knockout stages, because if they don't make it, which again I don't see happening, the world is almost over for England.
Oh, absolutely. John mentioned the subs being employed. I mean, the fact that Kobe Mainu, one of the most informed midfielders, I'd say Adam Morton, Cole Palmer, of course, who was one of the best players in England. I mean, Phil Foden has had a dreadful tournament. And the fact that Southgate keeps sticking with his 11 is just a little bit surprising. They have questions at left back. And so, personally, I would probably put Kyle Walker at left back, slide Trent back into right back, and let a midfielder, which is the most stacked midfield and probably in the entire tournament, duke it out for that final spot at the 8. I think that this team is overthinking it. It feels
Agreed.
like...
It came down even from the first game, and I know Johnny has some thoughts on it as well earlier on when we were offline about Trent Alexander-Arnold and just the way that he set up the squad. It didn't make sense to me, honestly, but it's going to be interesting to see what he does going forward. Again, they seem like they're in pretty good shape right now going into the knockouts at least.
But just to put a pin in it here, Carlo Ancelotti with Real Madrid has won 3 Champions Leagues, I think, with Real Madrid. He literally just throws the players out and tells them to do their thing. And I feel like Carlo Ancelotti with England, like that kind of management style, would work a lot better than filling the players' heads with tactics.
Okay, so I just want to present you with this. And it's something that I've thought about deeply, because I am as critical of England as anybody right now after seeing them play 2 matches in the Euros. Could they still easily win this championship?
Yes, absolutely.
So I just want to be clear that, yes, the first 180 minutes has not gone well. That being said, this team still has all of the talent, all of the ability to go out there in the knockout round and get it done, don't they?
Absolutely. It just takes 1 or 2 goals or even 45 minutes to get a team to click. And once a team clicks, then it's dangerous. And we've seen teams like Germany, Spain, they're already clicking. But if like a team like France or England start to really, especially when Mbappe gets back for France, like once they start to click and mesh together, that is when they start, putting 3 past opponents and things like that.
Okay, so we talked about your trip to the Euros. You were there. You've had the ability to enjoy so many different fan bases, right? You've obviously watched the football on the pitch as well. Who besides England really caught your eye from both on the field and off the field perspective, right? There's a lot of fans from all over the European continent there in Germany. I guess the way I'd ask the question is, whose fans' energy matched the team's energy the best?
See, I hate that you phrased it like that because my first thing that popped in my head was the Scots. The Scots are the loudest, best, and nicest fans. I had such a blast with them. But their team has played terribly. so I hate to like throw them under the bus like that. But I would say not matching the field energy, but just best support in the tournament, the Scots by a country mile. Now, when it comes to just support, that's a good question. I got to think about that one for a second. I mean, I think the Germans, obviously it's the host country, but the Germans have been absolutely bonkers.
One of my favorite videos so far during the Euros
the saxophone?
is the saxophone German. I mean, the black saxophone hoisted above the crowd, playing the hits. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal to see that. Other than the Germans, though.
I'm looking right now. The Dutch. The Dutch have been packing the streets. I mean, have you seen the videos? It's like an entire street of orange. It is nuts. And when I was in Amsterdam, you could feel it. They feel really good about it. Went to Johan Cruyff Arena, had my respects to Johan Cruyff there. I felt really good, and they were one of my dark horses of the tournament.
The scenes are unbelievable, and you see all the 40,000 fans doing the 2-mile march in Leipzig and doing the, almost like a Pepas kind of version of their own, right to left, and just feels like the ground is shaking, it seems like. And they showed out. That sea of orange was huge in the game against France.
Let me just make this statement before you introduce the next guest here on Full Time Roundup. It's a pleasure to be here on the show, by the way, guys. It just feels a little bit better than Qatar, doesn't it?
It does. And yeah, it does. And I know why you say that.
I think anything feels better than Qatar.
Anything feels better than Qatar. And of course, not only when we mentioned Qatar, I did a wonderful segment around Qatar World Cup with our next guest, Danny Brams. We did our tournament recaps every day around Qatar, and then this feels a little different, though. This feels a little bit more enjoyable than talking about the issues that we talked about on the World Cup roundup every episode.
Guys, thanks for welcoming me to the show. Absolute honor to be here with y'all, and it feels very different. The scenes in the streets. I saw a post on Twitter the other day that said, it was like 10,000 Dutch fans marching up some cobblestone alley chanting, with the chants reverberating off of the townhomes all around them, and just echoing off of each other into a cacophony of joy. And the caption on this video was, "Please never, ever, ever host the World Cup in a place like Qatar ever again." And I couldn't help but agree, and I can't wait to see it in the United States. Our alleyways are not quite as tight when it comes to what Europe has to offer as far as that goes, but I know for a fact that the United States, 30-some years after hosting in '94, when this sport on the big-time international level was still kind of a curiosity to many Americans, now it's become a passion. And the mix of what American fans and Canadian fans and Mexican fans are going to bring, compared with all the international folks. You think about, we got the Copa going on right now, and we got the Euros going on right now. Imagine combining the Copa with the Euros, adding in
the Asian Cup.
Yeah, adding in Africa, adding in Asia, and just seeing like an absolute explosion of culture on the streets. I cannot wait. The football has been great, but as with any massive international tournament, and this is why FIFA gets away with being the most corrupt organization in world history, besides a few governments. They get away with it because when you see those scenes, you forget everything else and you just want to do more to see more of those scenes. And we've seen it at the Euros, and we're going to see it in 26, and I can't wait.
I mean, they let Daniel Brackett, get involved in the scenes. So how much more corrupt can it be?
They certainly did. I will echo one thing from my experience, is that when I think of Germany, I think of a very organized, to the point country, and they have not organized this tournament very well structurally. Like, I was talking to England fans when they went to the game, and there's only one metro for 60,000 fans to get on. It feels like you're walking back from Charlotte FC after the light rail, and it's like one every 30 minutes. It's just a nightmare. That's been a bad. Even the public viewings have just been crazy to get into. Obviously, it's 30,000 fans, but you'd have to go 3 to 5 hours early just to get in, and it's like, I just think the organization could be a little bit better of the tournament. But when it comes to the fans, phenomenal.
I guess to take it back to play on the field a little bit, some of the organization stuff, do you think that it's feeding off of that a little bit, and just kind of the chaos that is on throughout the tournament? We haven't seen many goals. A lot of players disappointing. Some players shining, of course. But what are your thoughts on just what we're seeing on the pitch? I don't want to diminish your value and your experience, because it's something that the three of us don't have because you were there. But what we're seeing on the pitch, I think, is obviously just as important. And I think there's some stuff that is either going unnoticed or hasn't been discussed enough. And I would love to kind of get your thoughts on it from a tactical or just a fan perspective.
There's been some dazzling football. It just feels like the pressure of, like, I feel like just having your fans there, and just like Germany's such a central spot where a lot of fans can like travel there fairly easy. I mean, I went all the way across, so it was like very easy to get to. So I feel like the people showing up, it's not like it's the east or west. It's like right in like central area. So I feel like the fans just being able to go there, I feel like the players feel that pressure. And when it comes to that final third, they've lacked a little bit of quality. It feels like the whole world is on their shoulders a little bit. And that's why we've seen, own goals being the leading goal scorer of this tournament. And there hasn't been just a firework display of goals. And maybe we'll see that in like the last stage of games when people just throw the kitchen sink. But it's been very cagey, but there still has been games where these lower countries especially have been playing beautiful, beautiful football.
It has been, between the lines and out of the back, a lot of beautiful soccer. Like you said, Germany's been very nice to watch.
The best team to watch, in my opinion.
Them and Spain. Spain's been very good
too.
as well. And so, we're looking at teams like that. Of course, France, a little bit disappointing, which we talked about England before.
A little bit.
A little bit. Just a little bit.
A little bit disappointing.
Little disappointing.
Very.
Where are you sitting on England, Danny? We touched on it earlier, but we'd love to hear your thoughts.
We don't need to talk about old shit. England is going to go as far as Southgate limits them from going. They have enough talent to win, but they won't win because of their manager.
That's fair. How about Portugal, who played yesterday against Turkey? They look pretty good. Ronaldo.
As long as Pepe's in the starting 11, they will not make the semifinals.
Wow. I was going to knuckle you. I completely disagree. I think he made some amazing challenges.
He'll make a big error at some point and screw them for sure.
One of my favorite bits of commentary so far on the championship was whoever was doing the analyst work for the Portugal game yesterday was like, if Pepe was born in Greece or Rome back in those days, there would be monuments of his stature. And I was like, damn, dude, that's pretty cool.
That's true. It's also true. He just has to go up against Ronaldo, who's in his 6 Euros and scored again. So
he's a big dumb ox, and he's slow at this point of his life.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't disagree more. But I will say that the Turkey game and
Turkey,
excuse me. The Turkey game and the Czech
game.
Show
some damn respect.
I'm sorry. I'm not a commentator. Had two polarizing fixtures, right? Czech game was very park the bus, 5 behind the ball, and then Turkey went right at him. Very open. You messed with me, DB.
He's very hard.
Next thing I know, you're going to be saying Czech Republic, and I'm going to have to climb across the table and smack you.
Chechnya.
Chechnya doesn't exist anymore thanks to Putin.
You got to be rattled now. Chechnya, excuse me, gave the blueprint to beat Portugal, and no one's going to play Portugal like Turkey did.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, of course. Ronaldo, passing the ball off and looked kind of like a distributor versus I want the goals.
All-time assist, that's why. He knew the stat.
That's fair.
He knew it.
But it will be interesting. Portugal have the talent. Of course, Roberto Martinez is someone that's going to dictate, similar to what Danny Bram said about their Southgate, Roberto Martinez is going to dictate how far Portugal, for me. They'll definitely win the group. They've already advanced into the knockouts, and so it'll be interesting to see where they fall into the round of 16, who their matchup is against. That kind of is going to, of course, now as we get to that point of the tournament, you're looking at where teams fit on the bracket. Who do you not want to play, especially in these last group matchups? France versus Poland. Poland are out, but France have to get that result so they don't finish second in the group. You can look at all the way to Belgium. That group is absolutely chaos right now. Where do they finish? Who do they get in the knockout stage? So we're at that stage of the tournament where it's the business part.
That's truly the dream. That's truly the dream of a tournament like this, though, when you get, after 2 rounds, all 4 teams on 3 points. It's like anything can happen on the third match, which is nice. Yeah.
Chaos,
baby.
You almost felt for Scotland, who had a chance, if they got 4 points, to get that third place spot, as some four third place teams will advance. But when you see things like that, you kind of feel like the window closes, because 2 teams are going to end up with at least 4 points in that group as well. And goal differential is not their friend after that game against Germany.
If I may jump in here on the Belgium story, obviously a really tough loss to start their Euro 2024 campaign.
Shocking loss.
But I think what you saw from Kevin De Bruyne in the second match was a commitment to excellence that maybe wasn't there. De Bruyne is somebody that you can underscore as one of the best playmakers and goal scorers in the world. And I think after Belgium lost that first match, he kind of took it on himself to get the job done. And I think that maybe that could carry through into the knockout round. And I also think Lukaku is by far one of the unluckiest players in Euro right now.
It's ridiculous. But at the same time, it's been haunting my nightmares that Luis Openda has just been rotting on the bench the entire tournament. Had 20-plus goals for RB Leipzig this year, one of the best players in the Bundesliga. I just don't get how he doesn't make his way in the starting lineup at some point.
I mean, that's what I think is Belgium's problem is a continual commitment to players that crashed out of Qatar 2020.
The failed generation.
Like, don't forget about the fact that they were horrible at the last World Cup, and KDB acted like he didn't even want to be there, and they're still out there. He didn't start the first game, but the second match, old man Jan is starting, your boy Vertonghen, Johnny. And I just think they've stuck with these players way too long. I would have loved to see Openda out there making things happen.
You know who didn't start in the first match when they lost? Jan Vertonghen.
And Tielemans. He scored the goal.
You mentioned Lukaku, of course, a impact player going into the tournament who hasn't really, delivered to date. We spent a lot of time on Euros.
I think he's delivered. I disagree completely.
VAR just killed him.
I think he's delivered in a massive way. I think that his body strength, his
holding
ability
it
to
up.
body people around, he made some of the players that he was going up against look like little boys.
That's fair, but at the end of the day, Lukaku's on that squad to score goals, and he hasn't scored a goal yet. And
Well, he scored goals that have been – I mean, the offside review, give me a fucking break with that.
It was a rough
goal.
offside.
Three called off the AR goals.
Wait, just get ready for that technology in the Premier League, folks.
I
Just
can't
gotta
wait.
say that.
I
That's
can't
all
wait.
I'm
Stop
gonna
drawing
say.
the stupid lines. That's way better.
better than the lines.
To Johnny's point, though, it's that
faster
far
than the
off,
lines.
and it's going to be offsides
Yeah.
in the Premier League. So just get used to it. But you mentioned Lukaku, of course, some impact players. We've touched a lot on the Euros. We still have a lot to get to with Copa America, U.S. men's national team. So just before we move off the Euros, Dan, I want to get your thoughts on some impact players, some players that have shined up to this point in the tournament. There's some youngsters that are absolutely making a statement and a name for themselves right now, and yet there's still a lot of tournament yet to go. One for me that stands out, he's just been all over the place, is Jamal Musiala, who he might be the best player in the world right now.
Best player in the world. I mean, me and you, especially when I had Ewan on, we were talking about Bellingham versus Verts versus Musiala, and Ewan was kind of starting to talk me into the Verts talk, but then you see after a season Musiala is playing for Tuchel, and it hasn't been as good as you want, and then he shows up to the Euro with Nagelsmann. His best season at Bayern was with Nagelsmann, and the kid's just been unplayable. Best player of the tournament so far. Probably will be voted best player of the tournament, if not young player of the tournament, because he's so young. He's been it's unstoppable.
Unstoppable, of course. You have Xavi Simons for Netherlands, who scored the goal that was called off against France.
He's been good.
He's been very good. Florian Wirtz as well has been good.
Cody Gakpo has been
Gakpo's
fantastic.
Very good. No bias there from your perspective. But there have been a lot of good players.
Calafiori from
yeah.
Italy has
Yep.
made waves.
So it'll be interesting to see how these guys. Jude Bellingham's been a little quiet, but you still expect him to kind of step up as well. Not that we're picking all young players. It just happens that all the youngsters right now are really stepping up and showing off, and it's good to see. We've talked about it on the show before, Daniel, how good the game is for the future with what's going on with these youngsters. We haven't even gotten to the Copa America youngsters yet. There's some players there that are astronomically
Lights
good.
out.
And we haven't talked about Lamine Yamal yet either for Spain, who's looked really good, and Nico Williams as another impact player for them.
I got one for you who's not young. The Georgian. I'm going to try my best with this
Here we
name.
go with pronunciations.
Mikitatsde. He plays for Metz.
We'll
Georgian,
give it to you.
The Georgian striker, 2 goals in the tournament. I kind of caught drift of him late in the European season, and if Georgia wanted to do anything in this tournament, it had to have been him and Kvaratskhelia. The number 6, the center mid on the team, has also impressed me, but Georgia's been actually a really fun team to watch, and he's a joint top goal scorer right now.
Yeah, and of course, we'll cover all the rest of the Euros as we get into that deeper tournament. Of course, Copa America, though, has started to kick off, so we're going to bring Johnny and Daniel back into this conversation here around Copa America. Of course, U.S. men's national team are about to kick off today on Sunday, so we want to dive into that a little bit as well. But, you guys, what are your thoughts? I know, Danny Brams, you focus or hyper-focus sometimes on Argentinian league and some of these South American leagues. What are you seeing from some of those players, some of the players that maybe aren't on our radar all the time, and they're playing for Ecuador or Venezuela or teams like that?
What I've seen so far from Copa America,
Bronico's in the house.
There's a lot of fouls.
Bronny!
Bronny! Hey, what's going on? What I've seen from Copa America so far is a lot of fouls and a lot of angry teams and a lot of rivalries. The Clásico de Pacifico between Chile and Peru was just a foul fest.
Bar fight.
Yeah, and it was dicey. Argentina has looked good. Messi was fun to watch, but I feel like the Copa America really has yet to sort of take off, and I'm hoping that a big U.S. win over Bolivia could make that happen for sure.
You know, I see Bronny, everyone's asking him for autographs right now, and they're asking the wrong person. They got to ask Rebecca for an autograph. I mean, she's the one that is carrying the Bronico family right now.
No, I couldn't agree more. And, I mean, Uruguay tonight as well. I think they're a very big dark horse in this tournament. Marcelo Bielsa is coaching them right now. I mean, can he get Darwin Nunez to click? Will Luis Suarez play a part? Ugarte hasn't had a good season, but you still have Valverde, just to name a few players. I'm very bullish on them in this tournament, even maybe over Brazil.
Of course, Copa America has not only U.S. men's national team, but they have Mexico and Jamaica who played last night. Mexico, I don't know, guys. I don't know about you. They look like a shell of themselves. They've had a very difficult time the last 3 years.
Looked real bad.
They looked real bad. Edison Alvarez, of course. You don't know how bad or severe that injury is, but that's not only a big loss for the Mexican national team, but potentially West Ham as well, with the season quickly approaching. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I think everyone's looking forward to the game tonight in Dallas with the U.S. men's national team. Greg Berhalter came out, said some interesting comments.
Can you share?
He said that the team has to hope that they do well in this tournament. If you're the U.S. men's national team,
said that?
At this point in the cycle, you're not hoping. You're expecting to do well. And so for him to come out and say hope in that press conference to me, John, I don't know if you heard it, that to me was very alarming. Although, to be honest, with Greg Berhalter, nothing really surprises me.
I've got the perfect transition for y'all from Euro 2024 to Copa 2024. And yes, anything that Greg Berhalter does and or says at this point doesn't matter to me, because I was ready to move on from him as the manager over a year ago. So at this point, I'm just like, guys, earning free money, just coaching this team, living on borrowed dollars and living on borrowed time. But that being said, when I look at the Euro 2024 competition and I think about where the United States men's national team would kind of fit into that picture, I actually think the U.S. team would fit in at a very high level. I think that the United States could easily be the fifth, maybe fourth best team in the Euro 2024 competition.
I'm sort of speechless. I don't know.
I don't. At the current situation, I don't think we make it out of the group.
It depends on who we have as our manager. But
Manager's everything.
Your mind's going to be blown. This team's very good.
The team is very good. I've always been that.
And players can overcome a poor manager. It's the other way around, that when you have a good manager and poor players, right, people think that a manager can do great work. Pep's the master. Why? He's got the best players in the world.
Well, yeah. Hold that thought, because actually we're going to get to FC a little bit later, and I have a take on that around that exact theory. So, but
is it going to be too rough for me if I come out and say that I hope the U.S. crashes out of the group and fires Berhalter and hires Jurgen Klopp for 2026?
I think we all want that. I think not to crash out of the group, but I think we would love.
I don't hope we crash out of the group, but I could see it happening.
I think the four of us at this table agree that Greg Berhalter is not the manager of the future. So whatever we need to do to get him out, I think that's the key. Jurgen Klopp, of course, has a sabbatical, if you will, and it could fit really nicely. Pep Guardiola was in Boston during the NBA Finals. Could that be a set? He's set to leave Man City. Loves America.
He looked like he was 10 years younger also, by the way.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, there's some potential hope for the U.S. men's national team on the horizon. Giant, to your point, this roster is good, but are they that good in reality? I mean, like, Gio Reyna doesn't play for Nottingham Forest. Weston McKennie was average this year for Juventus. There's just some players that I'm questionable about. Who's the real striker on this squad? There's a lot of positions I don't know about.
I think the United States actually has some of the most underrated players in the world on the squad, and I think the fact that they are Americans makes them somewhat underrated. Typically, if you think back to the history of United States players in Europe, whenever that those stars and bars are presented next to a player's name, European fans kind of ask themselves, well, is this guy actually any good? But when I think about a player like Timothy Weah, I think that's somebody that doesn't get enough credit. I think he's a great player. I think he's going to do very well in this tournament. I think about Weston McKennie, the opportunity that he has in this United States men's national team to be the bully, to be the physical player, the guy that owns the middle of the pitch and wins aerial duels. He can do it all. And I think Christian Pulisic, for me, obviously the spell at Chelsea was not a good one. He goes to AC Milan. He's playing unbelievably well. To me, he's one of the more underrated players in the world. I think Christian Pulisic is somebody that can show up to this tournament and boss the whole fucking thing and win it. I truly believe that.
So,
and the one guy that I have to mention on top of that too is Tyler Adams. And Tyler Adams is also a player that is unbelievably criminally underrated because he's not playing in a position that people love to brag about. I think Tyler Adams is one of the best players in the world at what he does.
Well, he came out and said that exact thing. He just needs to have availability to prove that because he's been out most of the season. But what I will say, which is a fact, is this is the deepest U.S. national team has ever been. And it's not even close. I mean, we have fringe players that are playing and doing good things in Europe that can't even get a look in the squad.
So that was actually my question to both. Well, you're a U.S. men's national team fan, and not to discredit you, but your age kind of limits you from this conversation. Is this the most talented U.S. men's national team that the three of us, you've seen highlights and you've been around it, but of course, 94, the team with Landon Donovan going to the semifinals or almost the semifinals of the World Cup. Is this team as talented as those rosters were?
Yes.
And more.
As talented, yes. Better? We're about to find out.
We're about to find out.
That is true.
Dame Rams, thoughts on that? I mean, I know we've spoken about this before.
I'd like to see a lot more
past.
Aronson injected into the lineup. As everyone knows, I'm a huge Brendan Aronson fan and Paxton Aronson fan. I think that this team, much like – it's funny the parallels between U.S. men's national team and the English national men's team, which is an extremely talented group of players that's being held back by a manager that just doesn't know how to fit them together and make them cook. So I am pessimistic about the U.S.'s chances. However, being here in Charlotte, I would love to see us advance and move through to the semifinals and get it. If the U.S. men's national team is playing in a semifinal here in Charlotte against potentially Brazil, the city is going to be on fire, and I would love to see that happen. I got friends in town that bought tickets months ago to come watch this game, just hoping the U.S. would be in it. We all hope it would be in it. But I hope if we can't make it to the final, then I would legitimately hope for just an extreme disappointment, crash-out performance that gets a new manager in, because I don't think Berhalter's the guy for 2026, which as great as it would be to be competitive in this Copa America, the 2026 World Cup is really much, much, much more important for me.
Agreed. And we're going to get to FC here in a second, but just to round up the U.S. men's national team conversation, of course, we have Bolivia tonight, Panama next, and Uruguay to end the group, which the way the schedule works out does help the U.S. men's national team. Just a quick roundtable thought on where does this team actually end up in this tournament, and what's a success for you guys individually here?
I'm just saying, realistically, I feel like quarterfinals. What I've seen, I mean, obviously the result against Brazil was a little more hopeful than getting humbled by Colombia, but I just don't really rate Brazil right now. I think they're terrible. This is the worst Brazilian team I've seen in probably my entire life.
Sure, whatever.
I mean, out of 24 years, I just don't think it's that good. I just don't. New coach. We'll see if he crashes out. It's been a tumultuous time.
But how do they rate against the rest of the tournament is what you got to consider.
I don't know.
You can't judge them against Ronaldinho and Romario, but, I mean, come on. They're still Brazil.
I think Colombia could beat them easily. I think Uruguay could beat them.
I mean, if Richarlison can't make the squad, I guess they are pretty fucking good.
I think Vinny Jr. is 10 times better than any other player in the tournament. It's like, I don't know.
Besides that Messi guy is pretty good, too.
He's old.
Nah.
He's old.
He missed some sitters, though, and I will say Canada's been a mess the last year, and they actually looked like a formidable opponent, although they did lose. I just thought how they set up, And if they can get Jonathan David a goal or two, they're going to be more dangerous than a lot of people will give them credit for.
I like how you're delaying John's response of where the U.S. men's national team finishes in this tournament.
I said quarterfinals.
I heard you. I'm putting John on the spot now and getting his take on it.
I believe that the United States men's national team is going to be in the semifinal here in Charlotte. I think that they're going to play that match against Brazil. I think that we've already seen a preview of that match in Orlando last week. I think that the United States did a great job in drawing Brazil 1-1. I think that result is a much more indicative result than that first result where they got blown, their doors blown off, because I'm not sure they really gave a fuck in that match. I think that they see Brazil and they say, you know what? Let's up our game. Let's play the way that we should play. We know that we have the talent to do it. And I think at the end of this tournament, we're going to all be looking at Christian Pulisic and saying, wow, like, this guy is one of the best players in the history of the United States men's national team. And he does it in ways that may not result in goals, but his ability to run, his ability to work, his work rate, Christian Pulisic's work rate is just off the charts.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, and you can talk about his size, his stature, anything you want. I think Christian Pulisic is better than Landon Donovan by a lot.
He's my generation's hero as the younger person in this conversation. He was there 18 years old when we didn't make the World Cup, sobbing his eyes out, when he was carrying a U.S. national team. This guy has fucking dreamed of this moment, and he is going to pull up his socks, his bootstraps, and he is going to will the U.S. And if we're going to go far to the semifinals, like you said, it's going to go through Christian Pulisic, not Balogun, not Weah, not McKinney. It is going to be him. And he's going to have the weight on his shoulders, and I think he's going to deliver after the best season in Europe he's had of his career.
And I'll go very intense as far as a very specific prediction. I think that semifinal, U.S. and Brazil here in Charlotte, could go to PKs. I really do think it could go to PKs. And we could conceivably witness one of the most intense moments in the team's history.
That definitely would be. Danny Brams, are you sticking with your crashing out, or is that just more
I
of
mean,
a
the
hyperbole?
group is just far too easily set up for the United States to not advance. We got Bolivia, Panama, and Uruguay, and it's not the strongest Uruguay team of all time in my book. They do have a couple good players, but I just really, really think that I agree with everything John said about Pulisic. Pulisic is the man. He's the best American. I agree. He's better than Landon Donovan. He's more skilled than Clint Dempsey.
He's got better hair, too.
The fact of the matter of
right
him, he wasted a couple years at Chelsea, which was really unfortunate. It would have been much better to see him go to, a team where he could play all the time in the Premier League, like Wolves or something like that. Yeah, or Tottenham. I know you always
He won a
wanted
Champions League at least.
He did win a Champions League.
but he definitely got a hard deal at Chelsea, and he showed that with what he could achieve at AC Milan. I personally have extremely low opinion of the Italian league, so I don't necessarily. I mean, it's light years behind the Premier League. So, with Bolivia, Panama, and Uruguay, it's just too weak of a group for the U.S. to not advance. We will not crash out. But if things go bad against Bolivia here in Game 1, which we're recording right before kickoff, then it does get a little bit squeaky bum time for sure. I'm not sure. I need to see how the bracket plays out, but 3 wins to get to a semifinal, I think, is a challenge. I think it's an uphill battle, and I would be pleasantly surprised if we make a semifinal as John's predicted.
Yeah, I'll go quarterfinals just for that point, but I wouldn't be surprised if we make it to somehow make it to the semifinal. So it will be interesting. Johnny, you mentioned the semifinal will be here in Charlotte. Of course, last night, though, Charlotte FC took to the pitch, not here locally. They were up in Philadelphia, your neck of the woods, and they got a big away win, 2-0. And boy, did your player that you represent shine in the biggest moment. And can we get this man a contract already at this point?
Yeah,
Patrick Agyemang, of course.
Let's just call it exactly how it is. Patrick Agyemang is stepping up in a massive way for this club right now. And he was doing so before the goals started hitting the back of the net. As soon as Enzo Capetti decided that he wanted to get out of town, it's pretty clear that the writing was on the wall for Patrick to step up and play well. And he's done exactly that. And quite frankly, it's really impressive to see a young American play well in MLS, someone who's drafted out of college. It's really, I think, satisfying to see because you can see the pathway, and I know pathway is kind of like a buzzword, right? Where it's like, you create a pathway here or there. Patrick Agyemang's pathway from East Connecticut State to Rhode Island to Charlotte FC, his humble beginnings. I mean, he's a guy that never in a million years would have been seen by anybody. And now he's being seen by everybody.
We sort of joke about John being his agent, but the way he's talking about it, he really could be, representing the guy behind the scenes. Nobody knows. I mean,
honestly, I should be representing the guy.
As a Philly guy, you'd understand he trusted the process, right? And it has worked in dividends. He started the season once Capelli got shipped off with a bang with a couple goals. It dried up a little bit, 3 to 5 games. He had the chances, just wasn't putting the ball in the back of the net, and then it clicked last night. And he scored a wonderful header and then a great left-footed finish. You would think he is both-footed, how he finishes with his left. He can go either way. He constantly gives really good defenders a lot of trouble. And I had a little bit of a different view on this game in terms of how I feel about Charlotte FC. I started the season I'm just going to let what happens. I trust Dino. We don't have the talent in my opinion, so I'm just going to let it happen. But watching 20 minutes of that game yesterday, I thought to myself, I'm actually going to be very upset if we don't win this game. Like, if you're going to be a legit top 5 team in the Eastern Conference, you go and you smash it and you get 3 points here. And after that first half, obviously, everyone's a little bit worried. It was a very boring first half. But Dino made the adjustments. He got the lads riled up. And they came out with some zeal in the second half and completely dominated the game.
I've got an idea. And you guys can finish your show, full-time roundup, however you'd like. But let's put a bow on this. And let's do a fresh episode of Charlotte Soccer Show. And let's make people come over to the Charlotte Soccer Show podcast feed to get our thoughts on the match against Philly and what's coming in the next couple weeks for the Crown during this Euro Copa Olympic streak, right? I think it'd be a fun idea to have you all both on our show as well.
Sounds like a blast. I mean, we've been going for a while. So.
Yeah, we have been. And of course, you guys we'll be having more of these back and forth, these collaborations across both of the shows as they've been doing the last couple weeks. So, we've covered a lot. Like you said, we've been going for a while. We've been talking about Euros, Copa, and everything in between. And so take us home. I mean.
Well, let me just, before full-time roundup is over, right, I think there's one key component to this episode that we haven't heard yet. Who the fuck is going to win the tournament?
I'm going.
Which one? Which tournament are we talking about?
Germany for the Euros.
Euros.
Argentina for Copa America.
Well, I'm biased. There is a bias. They're still undefeated in the tournament. They haven't scored a goal yet, of course. An own goal is the only goal that's gone in for us. Of course, Les Bleus is who I'm talking about, France. Kylian Mbappe, the scare that was maybe him not playing the rest of the tournament is over. He will be playing back. So I will say France. We're still going to win the tournament, and they will probably lift the trophy yet again. And they're the best team on paper, and they're the best team in the tournament.
You heard it here first. You still believe.
I still believe.
And for what it's worth, they just scored a goal in the 17th minute of the final match in Group
Banger. Robert Andrick. Gotta love it.
Charlotte Soccer Show. Make sure you check out Charlotte Soccer Show because we're going to get into the weeds on Charlotte FC. We're going to get into the weeds there. Full-time Roundup listeners.
Yeah, you can find us, of course, at Full-Time Roundup on X, at Full-Time Roundup. Daniel's X is Liverpool CLTFC. I almost forgot because it's been a while.
It has been a while.
Mine is Life of Gesslin. We'll be able to download, subscribe, listen wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating, of course. And again, you'll hear our voices more across the channels with Charlotte Soccer Show. You'll hear the Charlotte Soccer Show guys with us. It's the summer of soccer, not just here in the Queen City, but across the United States and in Europe. And we'll have you guys covered here on the Full-Time Roundup. Come check us out on the Charlotte Soccer Show shortly.